This Stripes Live coming at you on a Thursday night here before the Marlins and Nationals open up a 4-game set. As always, I am Ethan Badowski, joined by Kevin Barral, Isaac Azut, and a special guest this week, Nick Alvarez of the Fish and Whips podcast. Nick, this is the first time we're meeting. For those that might not be familiar with your work, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
I guess a little bit about me is been a lifelong fan of the now Miami Marlins ever since I was pretty much in diapers. I was a former Fox Sports Florida, now Bally Sports Florida employee for about 3 years. Currently living in Raleigh, North Carolina, working with my photography, but also, I just started this podcast this year, the Fish and Whips podcast. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. I've taken a little break from it, but I will be getting back to it again soon this year.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you, and we're glad to be talking some Marlins baseball with you. And it seems like with the way the team is struggling that there might not be a lot to talk about, but there's actually plenty to talk about when you really look at it. And as always on these streams, we're going to start by recapping the previous series, the one that just finished with the Toronto Blue Jays. It was a 2-game set, and all of us were wrong about what would happen in the 2-game set. The Marlins gets swept by the Blue Jays. None of us had that. They actually get swept in the season series. 2 4-game sets with the Blue Jays they lost all 4. Where do you even start with this series? I guess the place that I want to start is that it happens to Sandy again. He's absolutely fantastic. Twirls another gem, goes 8 innings, allows only 1 run, and he takes the loss. Last time out before this, he goes 8 1/3 and gets walked off in the 9th. It's unbelievable what they do to this guy. It's completely unfair what they do to this guy. And it's just kind of a notion of here we go again. So before we get into the impressions of the rest of the series, I just want to talk about what you guys from Sandy and Nick, since you are our special guest, I'll go to you first on this one.
When it comes to Sandy, obviously, what a talent, first off. He's really stepped into this ace role since the start of 2020. He's really, accepted it and really taken off and ran with it pretty much. And now we all know who the formidable ace of our staff is, which is a positive. Another positive is he's going really deep into games. He's keeping us in games. He's getting us, into 7th, 8th inning, or even 9th inning, or even throwing complete games, which is fantastic and almost unheard of for pitchers of his age to go into all of that and to, even have a complete game. But the issue is obviously, the run support. He has lacked run support pretty much all year long. His record obviously shows that. With the outings that he's had, he definitely should have at least a winning record or 500 record on the season. But for right now, it's just not working out that way, and we need to find or figure out how we can get this guy some run support at least by the end of the season, or else, it's just he's going to end up getting really frustrated down the road.
I would be very frustrated if I were him, especially coming off these last 2 outings. And one thing I want to talk to you guys, Isaac and Kevin, about is just, last stream I talked about with Sandy how I love how he gets it done in different ways. Sometimes he'll rack up the strikeouts and throw a bunch of pitches, but he can go deep into the games a lot because he can also do it where he's producing a lot of soft contact, a lot of ground balls. The other night, 8 innings, 5 hits allowed, 1 run, just 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. Something we don't talk enough about with Sandy is how much he's really limited the walks this year, how much he's cut down on the walks this year. And it's been so impressive for a guy that we figured would struggle with walks throughout his career. So he does it again. He goes 85 pitches or 86 pitches in 8 innings, and the only reason he doesn't get a shot at the ninth is because his spot in the batting order comes up in the 8th inning, and the Marlins are left with no choice. They need runs, and we can talk about who they should have gone to in that situation. Whatever.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? There's not many great options off the bench right now, just to be honest. But it's just the run support is the issue. And so, Isaac, what did you see in this outing that you really loved from Sandy?
Yeah, back to the development of Sandy, every single thing that you would have hoped to see, like in 2018, that you would have hoped that he would do, he's really done. Maintain velocity deep into games. He's able to strike out 10 guys in a game, and like you said, he's able to throw the Maddoxes. By getting to 8th, 9th inning and only 80, 90 pitches. But he looked phenomenal again on against the Blue Jays in Game 1. He did everything he was supposed to do. In that situation, taking him out, you're probably not going to score anyway. I would maybe let him go out for the 9th because, you don't really want Yimi facing that lineup. But no, Sandy has been spectacular, and he's really impressed all of us, I think, with how well he's pitched.
Dude, I remember you saying attack. That's the key for him every night out. And I mean, when you have 3 strikeouts and you go 8 innings, that's a sign of attacking. Man. And you want to talk, just to quantify this here, his K per 9 is 7.99. So that's maybe not what you would expect for a guy with elite stuff like Sandy, but he can rack up the strikeouts every now and then. But you talk about a 2.31 walks per 9, just steadily decreasing throughout his career. And last year, he had 3.21 in 7 starts. This year, 2.31. 2.31. So, almost 1 walk less per game. He's been fantastic. So, Kevin, just switching gears here, let's talk about Trevor. Last night, I want to get all of your opinions on Trevor because this was kind of a weird outing for Trevor, right? Like, he ends up getting through 5. He had a bunch of pitches through 5. He really struggled in the first inning, and it was kind of reminiscent of that start against St. Louis in his first start of the year. And it was actually probably his worst inning since the first inning of this season. So Trevor last night goes 5 innings, 5 hits, 3 runs, 2 walks, 6 Ks. Looked like it might get away from him there, and he kind of brought it back together, but he really didn't still have his best stuff. So what were your impressions last night of Trevor, Kevin?
It was shaky. I mean, most of the time it was just shaky. I mean, there are moments where he was incredible, getting the Ks. I mean, just helping this team stay in the game, which he did most of the time. And then there were moments like the first inning where he was just not showing his best stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it comes down to run support for everything. But Trevor was just phenomenal in a way. He was shaky as well. So he had his ups and downs in this game for sure. It wasn't his best start. I'll say that.
Yeah, Isaac, what were your thoughts on Trevor last night?
So I was at the game sitting in right field. I was a little bit late, which I never like to do, but I was with a female, and you know how that goes. But
we get it.
Yeah, we were there, and Trevor, he was maintaining velocity. He made great pitches in the middle innings of his start. First inning, he a little bit of bad luck, but he just wasn't executing as well as he has, in his previous starts. But I was just so impressed with how he was able to settle down, much like he did in this first start of the season against the Cardinals, where he, loaded the bases. He really made adjustments against this, heavy right-handed hitting lineup that he was facing, and he was able to keep the Marlins in the ballgame, which is all you could ask for. And he's done that every single start, so it was great to see.
Yeah, I was in the box last night, and I'm looking at my scorecard from last night here, and it really was 2 innings that you kind of felt like, oh, he might not make it out of this. He obviously in the first inning he gives up the 2 runs, and the thing I was surprised by was everything was going the other way. So even if you look at the outs here, Simeon goes unassisted to Aguilar, and then Bichette singled to right, Guerrero walked, then Hernandez doubles to right, then Springer and Grichuk both ground out to first base. So everything was going that way. And then in the second inning, single, looking at a sac bunt here, he loads the bases after a single and a walk, and then he really almost wasn't out of it when Guerrero, comes a foot away maybe from clearing the bases with this hard line drive into left field. But Jesus Sanchez made a nice running play. So, Nick, to see him, the Cardinals, it was 1 inning. Last night, it was 2 innings. To see him survive these 2 innings, and then, he only made it 3 more, but sat down 6 in a row, and then, the double and the single, but then he strikes out 3 to finish it off. So your overall impressions of what you saw from Trevor last night?
Well, from Trevor, pretty much what I've seen so far this year has just been, an exponential amount of growth from the previous season. He was very conservative. In 2020, he was trying to find his way, trying to find his pitches, trying to find his style. And then I think over spring training, I think they really focused on him changing his attitude and changing the way he approaches games. I think that has really helped him out, especially this year, especially after that first inning. He was kind of reminded, like, hey, after you had that bad inning, you really bared down and really started attacking the hitters, and then you were pretty much scoreless from there on out. So what he really needs to do is just maintain that focus. Now, remember, he's also still very young. He's still very raw. This is considered his rookie season, so he's going to have starts like this. He's going to have starts where he struggles. And I mean, even some of the pros, like Garrett Cole, he's had some bad starts this year. Like starters have struggled outings. But the thing is when you have a night where you don't have your best stuff, can you still maintain to keep your team in the game?
Mm-hmm.
They will do just that.
Yeah. No, he did a good job with that last night, and the Marlins pitching staff has done a good job with that all year. And just to quantify Trevor here, his ERA inflates all the way to 2.08, which is the fourth best in baseball this year.
Only 2.08. That's
he's still having a great, fantastic year.
Right.
And like I said, only three runs. He really did do a good job with limiting damage. He got out of that second inning and then sat down whatever 9 of his last 11 or something like that. So anyway, I want to go and talk about the offense. So we talk about how one thing I want to say is Sandy crossed 100 innings in his start, and Trevor went over 100 strikeouts in his start. So Sandy's well on his way to 200 innings, and Trevor, last year he walked a lot of guys, and I think it was just he wasn't used to he thought he could go outside the zone a little more, get chased, wasn't used to such good plate discipline up here at the major league level.
Right.
Now he's going in the strikeout in the zone and getting strikeouts, and obviously the changeup has come along so well. So that was just one thing I wanted to note about Trevor and about Sandy. Sandy's going to get clear 200 innings if he stays healthy this year, and Trevor is looking like he might be able to clear 200 strikeouts. So anyway, again, you keep them in the ball game, but the offense. People were mad about how Sandy got taken out and all this shit, but Sandy doesn't have to get taken out if the offense manages to score one more run in 8 innings. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous at this point. So, and then last night, again, Marte provides the only offense with a home run. The Marlins, I'm looking at this, and there were a lot of 1-2-3s, a lot of one base runner innings. They only had 5 hits, I think. Another night of just struggling offense. And it comes on the end of 2 games at Wrigley where they go for 21 runs in 2 games. And then since then, they've scored 3 runs in 2 games. And you want to go back even further. And, I think they scored 3 runs in the series against St. Louis. So except for those 2 games, they've scored something like 6 runs in basically 2 series. It's what's the problem? Why can't we find any consistency? The lineup is the same today that it has been for the last 6 days. You've got a lot of your main guys back. You want to talk about the injuries, but you've got Rojas, you've got Marte, you've got Jazz, you've got Duvall, you've got Alfaro, and Alfaro's been hitting pretty well recently, and Birdie's been hitting well recently.
He's hitting 271 on the year. I mean, that's fantastic for him.
No, that's all you can really ask for from Jorge Alfaro with 96 weighted runs created plus. So I just, where do we start? Somebody take it over here and just why can't Mattingly ask in the press conference last night? Basically the frustration is why can't we put 3 or 4 up every night? If the Marlins put 3 or 4 up, I saw somebody say that if they put 4 up every night, they'd be just around 500. So,
yeah.
What are your guys' thoughts on the fact that they just can't find the consistency?
Go ahead.
Oh, it was actually 2 runs in the last 3 games, to make matters worse.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I think, most offensive centric teams are not going to have guys like Jesus. As good as he's been, he's not going to be hitting third in many lineups. You know what I mean? Duvall it's maybe a 6 hitter in the Atlanta Braves playoff lineup last year. We're just putting a lot of emphasis. Corey Dickerson isn't hitting fourth for a lot of teams either. You know what I mean? So I think they're really going to have to take a look in the mirror and say, hey, listen, this is not – and half the lineup is gone next year anyway. They're all free agents. So I'm really curious to see what they're going to construct. But it's got to be frustrating for this pitching staff that this team just cannot muster more than 1 run to save their freaking lives. And it's definitely getting on Miners, getting on Mattingly's, I'm sure. And he's putting up the same lineup again tonight. The last 3 games they scored 2 total runs. Maybe try something different. I know it worked for the 2 games in Wrigley, but I would maybe try something different. I don't know.
I just don't know what you can try different. I know Aggie's struggling, but he's been the last couple nights he's hit the ball pretty hard. Like he hit the ball hard a couple times last night, and that's usually his sign as he starts hitting the ball hard, but things don't land. That's usually his sign, like, okay, he's going to come around. But streaky hitters, Nick, is it just a case of streaky hitters, or is it a case of not great hitters?
I think it's a bit of both. We have hitters like Duvall who will have like those 3 to 5 game spurts of where, he's like the best player in the National League, but then he'll have 10 games of where he'll struggle to get like 3 or 4 hits in those 10 games. But the issue really is that we've struggled to put the ball in play this year. And especially with runners in scoring position, we've struggled to just put the ball in play. We don't need to have, we shouldn't be having where we're you have runners on like second and third with 1 out, and we should be trying to hit the ball over the fence. No, when we're an offense or when we're a team that focuses more on our pitching and our defense, our hitting needs to be timely. We need to be able to just hit the ball, ground the ball to second base, and let that run from third score to just give us a run or hit a sacrifice fly or something like that. Just put the ball in the air, put the ball in play, make the defense work, put them to work. Not every defense is, a world caliber kind of defense. Some are liable to make mistakes. Some are liable to make errors. Some are liable to have, mental judgment where they don't throw the ball to the right base. So we just need to focus on putting the ball in play and less about, just hitting for the fences or getting those big hits, big extra base hits. Honestly, if we try to focus more on not striking out as much, I feel like, and putting the ball in play, I feel like we would be better as a team because we have all this speed on our team as well. So, and we're, when we get runners on base, we're constantly running, we're constantly moving. We're trying to get, these guys into scoring position and give ourselves the opportunity. But the problem is when we get those opportunities, we forget that we just need to make contact, just give these guys a chance to score.
Yeah, situational hitting has just been lacking. I think that's the main consensus over here.
Exactly.
It feels like that's been the thing my whole life, with the Marlins, is that they just can't situational hit. They're always terrible with runners in scoring position. And one thing I want to put a number on here, Nick, is you talked about the strikeout rate, 5th worst in baseball at 26.1%.
There you go.
So, the Marlins aren't good at doing a lot of these things like taking walks and just kind of keeping the line moving, and they strike out a lot. And that's just a recipe for, bad situational hitting. So speaking of bad situational hitting, one thing I wanted to have a discussion about before we get into previewing the Nationals series, 1-run games. So the Marlins last night fall to 5-16 or last night wasn't a 1-run game. The night before, the Sandy start, the Marlins fell to 5-16 in 1-run games. And to me, that feels pretty high takes were made. I see you in the chat there. Hello. I'll give you the recognition that you always crave. In 1-run games, we're 5-16 this year, and you're looking at that and you're saying that can't possibly be sustainable, right? Like a sustainable 1-run game record, you would think would be somewhere around 500. Those are coin flips. So if you're looking at that, you're saying, okay, 5-16. That's 21 games. You're looking at like a 10-11 record. I looked it up.
Mhm.
The Nationals are 12-8 in one-run games, and that could be the difference between the fact that they're in second place in the National League East and the Marlins are in last place. So, Kevin, I'll go to you to start this discussion out because I think this is an interesting one. What do you think is contributing more to the fact that they're losing a lot of these one-run games? Has it been the bullpen not being good in clutch situations, or is it just the fact that they need the offense to provide them that one more hit, two more hits that they're just not getting in certain situations?
Oh, as of late, it's been the bullpen. It's 100% been the bullpen. I mean, St. Louis game, all 3 games we lost to a walk-off. Let's just start off by that. Yimi, I don't think Yimi should be the closer anymore. I mean, he blew the game, the first game versus Toronto. The offense can't put up runs either. Let's just be honest. This team wants to hit when they want to hit. We saw it in Wrigley, and now we're seeing it here. They only had 2 runs. I would say put Bender in at the closer, see what happens when maybe that record completely switches it up. When it comes to the offense, they're overthinking it. They're overthinking it a lot. That's the word I think we should use here, overthinking. Besides that, I mean, they could really switch this around if they just started hitting, man. If they got consistent hits, if they played the way they played in Wrigley each day, this team would be a 500 record team right now. That's all I'm gonna say, really.
Yeah, well, you like Mattingly said this last night. You're not going to get 10 or 11 every night, but four,
Yeah,
five.
at least
You
four,
know,
yeah.
four. Put up 4 or 5 every night. If you spread those 10 runs out over a 3-game sample, you're probably going to do pretty good. So one thing, Bender. Okay, we can talk about Bender and how he should be the closer because he's got the best stuff. Lights out. He's been really good, but he hasn't been great with inherited runners. So okay, if he's the closer, you're bringing him in situations, but or in clean situations. But remember the game in Pittsburgh where they finally go to him in the 8th inning or the 9th inning or whatever, and he has the out that gets them out of the inning with the lead, and he drops the fucking baseball, and you're like, what the fuck is that? Like, how can you possibly make that up? You know what I mean? It's the guy that we've been clamoring for Mattingly to go to. He goes to him and he drops the ball, literally. So it's like they've tried everything, it feels like, and maybe they need to go to him a little more consistently. But I saw somebody on Twitter tweeted out the picture of the fact that the Marlins bullpen is the worst in the league in clutch situations this year, and that's just they've been so good. We think that they've been really good, but recently it's a sign of being overworked, I think, kind of. And another sign is that the offense is leaving them in situations where they have to be perfect. They have 1-run leads, they have a tie ball game. They're not coming in with 3-4 run leads a lot. So Nick, this is what I was thinking about when I was writing about this discussion and talking about this, setting up this discussion leading into the show. Is it just has the bullpen been bad because is the offense not helping the bullpen, or is the bullpen just been that bad? Like, do you think a little bit of both plays into what's going on here?
For sure.
I think it's been a culmination of pretty much, I would say, a culmination of bad offense, a culmination of, them having to be perfect, like you said, when they're only having like 1-run leads, or they're, constantly being brought into high pressure situations. And, it's not always going to work out that way. Another thing is we've pretty much had a 3-starter rotation for this entire season so far.
Mm-hmm.
When you can get away with having, a 4-starter rotation for a good amount of the season. But when you're down to just 3 guys, I mean, while they're all pretty excellent, having only 3 guys is just, it's not sustainable. And you're going to constantly use the arms in your bullpen to make up for the fact that you only have 3 real starters in your rotation. And the fact that, we've had this issue all season, it's really kind of worn the bullpen down. And then when they come into games, they're coming into tight situations. And I'm sure they've had to feel like they've had to, like you said, be perfect or try to, sustain a 1-run lead. And it's the big leagues. It's Major League Baseball. It's not easy to consistently do that night in and night out. Having just a 2-run cushion coming in to a high pressure situation is it's that much easier on the mind. because as a pitcher myself, when I was growing up, when you're coming into a game like that, when, it's like in the late innings and you have a 1-run lead or a 2-run lead, you can think, okay, if I give up 1 run, it's okay. We still have the lead. I could still get these guys out. But when when you only have the 1-run lead, you're focused more on not making that mistake. And so with these guys, it's the same thing. They feel like they can't make any mistakes. And usually when you're thinking like that, you end up making the mistakes.
Yeah, second in the league this year in blown saves with 15. They're tied with the Giants, and the Phillies have the most with 16. Isaac, why? Why? Is it the pitchers? Is it, can they not? Is it because they don't really strike anybody out? Like, why? What do you see that you look at it and they're blowing all these 1-run games?
Well, if you remember when they reconstructed this bullpen from last year, Kim Ng emphasized strike throwers, which, okay, great. You have guys like Adam Simber, strike throwers, but he'll also get racked. Anyway, regarding Bender, I think, him dropping the ball, I think that should be irrelevant to whether, if Mattingly didn't put him in a high leverage situation because of that. That's why ERA.
He's still been in high leverage situations. Right, I'm just saying it's like he finally gets the chance and he drops the fucking ball because, of course, it's been that kind of year.
Literally and figuratively.
Right. So, I don't think you lose anything by giving him the 9th. Let Bass have the 8th or the 7th, and have, Yimi was phenomenal in the 8th inning last year. Phenomenal. He was our best reliever. So I think you go like that, and I just don't know how Floro. I think with Floro, it's the workload for sure. He has pitched an insane amount of innings, and I think he was going to start struggling eventually. You can't have him throw that many innings. And who else? Blyer. He's kind of on an inconsistent schedule. He doesn't come in as much. It's just a very inconsistent situation where, you have Floro pitching an 11-1 game. I think it was in Wrigley. It's just maybe bad management. I don't know. I don't think that of Mattingly, but, it's a combination of a lot of things. Of not guys with elite stuff, tough offenses they're facing against, and they're all, like Nick said, tough 1-run situations where, okay, we finally have the lead. We scored runs. Let's not shit the bed and allow a run. And, that's when pressure mounts and you leave a pitch over the plate.
Yeah, no, I think that I lost my train of thought, so I'm going to go to Noah here for a second. Noah, okay, 1-run games. So 1-run games is the topic that we're on right now. We're talking about, has it been the offense? Has it been the bullpen? Has it also been bad luck, Noah? Because I think that to have a 5-16 record, like you need one. Eventually, a bounce is going to go your way in a 1-run game, right?
Eventually, the ball is going to carry when it needs to carry and not get caught in the outfield when we need it to. One of these days it's going to go over the fence in this park. One of these days, Aguilar's going to finally figure out how to hit a home run in this park. One of these days, Adam Duvall is going to finally figure out how not to be the streakiest player in Major League Baseball history. It's just the stars need to align at the right moment, and they're not. What's happening is when our bullpen's good, our offense is terrible. When our starting pitching is great, our bullpen is terrible sometimes. When our offense is great, our bullpen is terrible. Nothing's aligning at the same time, ever. And that's been for years now. This has been happening, and it's getting to the point where I think there's a curse, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah. No, it's frustrating, man. And I hate to do like bad luck and the Pythagorean record because the results matter. It doesn't matter what should be happening, but the results matter. But when you talk about 1-run games, like eventually it has to even out. Like you got to start getting some good luck to go your way. And I read an article.
I don't know if it was mentioned, but someone calculated it. If we scored 4 or more runs in every game this season, we'd be in first place.
Yeah, I think that was Takes Were Made. If you're still watching out there, my boy, shout out to you. But there he is. We always recognize you. But I think eventually the luck has to even out. And I read this article a couple weeks ago from 538 about how the Marlins have gone from historically lucky when they made that playoff run last year. You talk about an 11-8 record in 1-run games to historically unlucky, and you're looking at 11 games under 500 or 11 more wins than losses in with these 1-run games, and you're looking at it I don't remember what I said there. Sorry, I said that wrong. But 5-16 is the record in one-run games, and you're looking at it and you're like, how is this possible? Eventually a bounce is going to go their way, and they're going to win one of these one-run games, I think. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting discussion, and if you really look at it, it's the difference this year between being a 500 ball club and between being, 31-42 heading into this record. Because, actually 11 losses, if you flip that around, which obviously you're not going to be 16-5, but if you even that out a little bit, you're looking at a 500 ball club, and it's frustrating as can be, because it's just a lot of bad luck and a lot of bad offense as well. I think really what it comes down to is just inconsistent offense, as Alex Carver comes and joins us. Little inconsistent offense, I think, is the thing. You look at 21 runs in 2 games. I keep going back to this, but it's just crazy. 21 runs in 2 games.
Out over multiple games.
That's what I'm saying, man. If you spread 21 runs out over 3, 4, 5 games, you're probably winning 3 to 4 of those 5 games. So it's just really unbelievable. Alex, we were talking about the Marlins in one-run games this year, and I want to get your opinion on this. Is it bad offense? Is it bad bullpen? Is it bad luck? Is it all 3? What do you kind of attribute what's going on to?
Yeah, it's not bad luck. I mean, you can't make excuses like that, Ethan. I mean, the other team hits in the park the same park that you're hitting it, And Don Mattingly says it himself. I don't care what the BABIP numbers are. It's probably low for the Marlins. You could probably say they're getting BABIP. Okay, fine. But, the other team plays they're playing in the same elements that you are. It's not like the Marlins play at Wrigley Field where the wind's changing direction every 5 seconds and you could say, okay, take that into account, right? They play it at Lone Depot Park for most of their games. And, that is what it is, while it is this way with the dimensions the way they are, score, hit in the clutch, you're paid what you're paid for a reason. You're in Major League Baseball for a reason. Those are the spots the team's counting on you. Go do your job, or you know what? Get out. That's how I feel about it. And you can look at the bullpen and say, I really don't think it's on the bullpen either, because you can't keep putting the bullpen in a one-run game, in a 2-run game even, and expect them to shut it down every single night. And of course, that's the guys that get the blame. Oh, you suck because you can't close out a game or you can't convert a hold every time you go out. And it shouldn't be on them to have to do that every single time that they're out there. It shouldn't be on Sandy to have to throw a complete game every time he goes out there. Yeah, he does because he's that good. But it just comes down to the fact that this offense is not performing. It's just not. It's not there. I mean, Jesus has given them a little bit of a boost, but I mean, Adam Duvall, aka Cody Ross, too. There you go. Aguilar hot and cold as well. It's just not consistent, and it's not a good baseball team. It's not a good offense.
I do want to say one thing on the previous series in terms of Sandy Alcantara. I was here for that game, and I saw Sandy was rolling. Can anyone explain to me why? Why he was pulled after 8 replaced by Sandy Leone?
Okay, I got it.
Why
you got to score. You have to score.
Okay, so put Lewin Diaz in his pitch.
Okay, those are 2 different things.
No, this is fine. You can argue who it should have been. You can't argue about pinch hitting in that situation.
No, yeah.
You got to try. You got to try and win the game.
I'm not arguing about that. I'm arguing about why do you put Sandy Leone in?
That's totally fair. No, that's really totally fair.
And not only can he not really hit very well, Lewin Diaz has a couple pinch hit home runs, and he's our backup catcher.
Yeah,
we need him as a backup catcher.
Yeah. No, the thing is, it's obviously Mattingly is, old school. He's going to go lefty righty, and he's going to go righty lefty in pinch hit situations. If he has a righty on the bench, he's not going to throw a lefty out there. And even though Lewin does have a home run lefty this year, I don't love throwing in a young guy in a lefty situation, high leverage like that. I don't think the result is going to go very well. But yeah, if you want to argue, this is what I said to people on Twitter, because it was obviously a hot topic. Everybody was, firing Mattingly because he pulled Sandy, 86 pitches. You got to win the game. You got to try and win the game. You got to pinch hit in that situation. And I said you can argue who it should have been, but at the end of the day, and even if Sandy goes back out there and he does put up a scoreless inning in the 9th inning, you still have to score in the 9th. And in the 9th, you had 2, 3, 4, and you go down 1, 2, 3. Marte got on, and then he gets picked off, and then boom, boom. So game over. So it comes down to the fact that they had 8 innings to score one more run to give Sandy that to be able to give him the 9th, because if they're up 2-1, he gets the 9th. With 86 pitches, he's getting the 9th there, and he's getting a chance to go for that complete
He's getting the
game win.
10th.
He's yeah, so
15.
yeah, so it's at the end of the day, I think that game just kind of came down to the Marlins couldn't give him one more run in 8 innings. But these 1-run games are going to, I'm sure they're going to continue to be a hot topic. They're going to continue to happen, I imagine, and maybe the Marlins will start getting the hits. Maybe it does take a good bounce. Maybe the bullpen will kind of get back to that form we saw in May, where they were really solid. But I do think that the Marlins are putting a lot of pressure on their bullpen. And Isaac, you talked about a guy like Floro showing signs of being overworked. The whole bullpen, I think, is kind of showing signs of being overworked. So,
yeah.
But anyway, let's move forward from that discussion and let's get to it. We're looking at coming up on 6:50, about 20 minutes till first pitch of Marlins and Nationals. And so let's talk about the Nationals here. As we usually do, I'll give you guys a little bit of an update on what they're looking at. They are red hot. 35-36 coming into this game. They're second in the NL East. They're 4 games back of the Mets, who are also red hot. This might be the hottest team in baseball coming into it. They've won 9 of their last 10 and 11 of their last 14. They're 14-7 in June. They were 21-29 coming into the June. So they were 8 games under 500. Now they're 1 game under 500. It's launched them into second place. And as I mentioned, they are 12-8 in 1-run games. And you guys, some people out there love to talk about differential, a negative 10-run differential for the Nationals, and they're a game under 500. So, as always, run differential means nothing. The hottest hitter on the planet right now, besides a guy we just saw, Vladdy Guerrero, might be Kyle Schwarber. Yep. He's got an OPS over 1,000 in June, and he's hit 10 home runs this month. He's got 19 on the year. He's got a 165 weighted runs created plus this year. I think he hit like 5 over the weekend or something like that.
Yesterday, the Phillies Nationals was nuts.
Yeah, they scored like 12 runs yesterday or something like that.
It was 13-12 final score.
Yeah, 13-12. I know that the Phillies bullpen again. And then, you want to talk about Juan Soto, maybe not a Juan Soto year, but still 825 OPS and 127 weighted runs created plus. And this is a guy I want to talk to you guys about. A skill set that amazes me is Trey Turner. He came in, it was always kind of a speed guy. And now all of a sudden he's hitting the ball out of the ballpark. He's got a 483 slug this year. He's hitting 315, 361 with that 483 slug, 844 OPS, 130 weighted runs created plus. Nick, I want to talk to you about Trey. What a skill set, what a player. I haven't heard from you in a while because we've got such a big group here. So I'll bring you back in.
I'm just listening.
What are your thoughts on this Nationals team right here? And who do we kind of? It's always Juan Soto that we got to look out for. But your thoughts on the team?
Well, like you said, pretty much the hottest hitter on the planet right now is Kyle Schwarber. I mean, I was just watching MLB Network, and they pretty much just had a segment on him where I think he's hit, 7 home runs in the past 5 games. Like, that's crazy, unbelievable. And he's hit, like you said, 10 home runs this month. So he's just been on a crazy tear. He's a power left-handed bat in the lineup. He's providing a lot of offense for them, especially when Soto hasn't had his typical Juan Soto year. With Trey Turner, it's pretty much just been his development as a hitter. We already knew he had the fielding, he had the speed, he had the contact, but now we're finally starting to see his line drive and power potential come into play. And that's over the course of his development in his major league career. So with him, it's like he's becoming that guy, which pretty much the Nationals knew already, which was the guy has the chance to be like the next Chase Utley, pretty much, but more at a shortstop position rather than at second base. So, with him, the sky's the limit. I think he could eventually be like a potential 30-30 guy. Maybe somewhere down the road, maybe not yet. But right now, I think he is probably one of the top 3 or 4 shortstops in the entire league.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. And Noah had to dip out, but he said that the Marlins take 3 of 4 from this one, which might be a little ambitious considering how good a ball the Nationals are playing. One thing I want to say about Schwarber is, I watched a lot of Cubs, obviously, when Schwarber was there as a Cubs fan myself. And when he's hot, he's hot. This kid, he just doesn't stop hitting when he's hot. And right now he's just locked in. And so he's been leading off, which my buddy is a big Nats fan, and he texted me about how great he's been in the leadoff spot, which was really interesting to me because Madden saw this early. So the year after the Cubs won the World Series in 2017, Madden tried to start leading off Schwarber, and he wasn't very good at it. He wasn't good there because, he gets on base so much. So you're thinking, all right, he can be a good leadoff hitter, but it's working now all of a sudden. And I did see that he's got 19 home runs this year. 18 are against righties, I think. And the Marlins are sending up 4 righties to face Schwarber. So, you want to talk about that and, that big challenge to get that guy out. Over under 4.5.
Well, if you're sitting in the home run porch over there in right field, you might get lucky.
I saw him when I went to see the Marlins, and he hit a ball that went a mile up into that deck. But Soto, Isaac, I'll go to you on Soto. Obviously one of the great players in the league. And we talked about Freddie Freeman on the stream a couple weeks ago when the Marlins played the Braves. And I said, what better for Freddie Freeman to break out into, a Freddie Freeman type year than facing the Marlins. Soto's hitting 274, 825 OPS, but for him, that's not a great year. That's obviously a great year for anybody. But, one of the best players in the league, obviously, and just kind of waiting for him to do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, to me, looks like more of that Bryce Harper year. His OBP is 130 points higher than his batting average. His OPS is, I think it's the slugging that, that sticks out a little bit for Soto. Like Freeman, he wasn't slugging as much as he usually does. But Juan Soto, don't get me wrong, he's still, I think the top 2 best hitters in the entire major league, entire world. So, yeah, it's just a matter of time. And, yeah, like you said, 4 righties this weekend. It might be a perfect storm for these Nationals to come in and take all 4. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's going to be scary. This lineup's looking good. The lineup's hot. Who knows what's going to happen with our 4 pitchers? But, I have confidence in Juan Soto to be fine.
Kevin, your thoughts on the Nationals coming into this one?
This is a good team, man. You can never count out the Nationals. I mean, we saw it 2019, 11-30, and they won the World Series. It's a little bit of the same this season. It's a good team. They have Trey Turner, Juan Soto, Kyle Schwarber, who, as you guys said, have been one of the best hitters in Major League Baseball. This is a good team. They have Scherzer, who we're going to see. They have Patrick Corbin. Tonight's Joe Ross. I think this might be maybe one of the weakest pitchers we face in the series. I'm correct? Yeah. Out of that, I think Marlins could really take some games here, and they have to take advantages. But this is a good Nationals team. You can never count them out.
I will say the Marlins do have a winning record against the National League East Division this season.
Yeah, they do tend to play well.
One thing that we can hang our hat on going into this series is they seem to step up their game once they're playing division rivals. So I think we might have a very competitive series over these next 4 games.
Yeah, the Marlins usually tend to play a lot better against their own division, the NL East. So, and this also has to do with the hitting.
And you want to talk about the fact that the National League East. There's a bunch of games coming up against the National League East. There's 4 this weekend with the Nationals, and then next weekend you've got 2 road series with National League opponents. I'll be in Atlanta for at least one of those games, and then you come home before the All-Star break, and you get the Dodgers and you get the Braves again. So actually, I did want to talk a little bit about sticky stuff, and just I forgot to talk about this earlier, and just kind of what your impressions of it have been so far. We talked about this. Isaac and I were on Marlins Barbecue with Alex Contreras earlier. Should be dropping tomorrow, and we didn't really go too in depth into it, and we don't have a ton of time to go too in depth into it here. But just your overall impressions so far of what you've seen, and my thinking is there should be a limit, on how many times you can call a guy. So Alex, you've got a lot of perspective on overall baseball issues. So I'm curious what your thoughts are here on the first week of the sticky stuff issue.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you. They're doing it also in the minors, and I think they do it right. You check the guy, the umpires check the guy once per game. And then, okay, if you want to say a manager should have the right to ask a guy to get checked once per game, so I think they should limit it to twice. The umpires, you automatically check them once because you got to stay fair, you got to stay consistent. So once per game as the guy's coming off the mound, in the middle of a start or whatever, don't do it in the middle of an inning. You don't do that. You don't get a guy off his game. The guy's pitching well. If he's not doing anything, and we saw with Scherzer, he clearly wasn't doing anything. That just gets the guy off of his game. It pisses him off, quite frankly, and he's going to start throwing, out of his control, and then the other team has an advantage. So you want to talk about taking the sticky stuff out and not letting a guy get the advantage that way. If you send the umpires out to a guy in the middle of a freaking at bat, that's working in the other team's favor. So you don't do that. Definitely not in the middle of an inning. It should be limited to the end of an inning permanently, first of all. And then second of all, you should limit it to one manager request if they want to. They don't have to. And once mandatorily check from the umpires. That's
per pitcher or like throughout the game?
No, I would say, yeah, that's a good question. I would probably say definitely for starters, who of course are the guys who are going multiple times, but it should have, you got to keep it consistent. So I would say per pitcher, they all have to get checked once, because you can't say, okay, we're going to check this guy. Right. We're not going to check this guy. Right.
And if you don't check the bullpen
and another guy's, Joe Ross, you have to keep it consistent throughout the board. You can't just base off talent level. So.
And what I will say, this is really what I wanted to get into, is the pitcher's reactions to it. So like Scherzer, he's very much like, look, I'm not doing it. But his spin rates were a little suspicious.
I think it's just a product. It's just a product of how many times he went through it. I mean, I think the players know that it's going to happen once per game, right? Yeah. But I definitely agree with him. I don't blame him for being mad. They're doing it in the middle of his at-bats. Like, no, that's not the way
that to me was ridiculous. And that was clear just like gamesmanship by Joe Girardi, who's
exactly.
known for that kind of bullshit. But one thing I thought about is like, why don't you do it in the dugout? Because if you do it out on the field, all the fans are going to see. It's going to be on TV, certainly, where Romo's stripping down to his underwear and stuff. So, Nick, your thoughts on just the enforcement and how it's gone down so far?
Okay. Well, I have several issues. Well, first, over the course of the past few years, the MLB, except for punishing the Astros, have gone to major extremes when it comes to competitive play. First, they juice up the baseballs, and then pitchers complain that they're getting hit, all the time. There's too many home runs. So then Major League Baseball is like, okay, we'll deaden the baseballs. Now the baseballs are deadened. Now hitters are striking out way too much, and everything's going out of whack. So now MLB is like, well, we have to check these guys, for all these illegal substances that they've had on, their hands while they're pitching. When in fact, the last person to be suspended for that was in 2015. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, they just, instead of just having reasonable responsive to these things, they constantly go to the extreme. And, instead of, having people come to an agreement on it, they end up just pissing a lot of people off.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the real issue. If MLB knew how to exactly time everything, then things would be a little bit more reasonable as far as, rules and, deadening baseballs, juicing baseballs, checking for illegal substances on pitchers' hands. Like, I'm sure if they would have said, hey, starting next season, we'll be checking, or starting, after the All-Star break, we'll be doing all that kind of stuff, then people would have been like, okay, it would have given us some time to adjust to it, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But, that's neither here nor there. As far as, checking once a game, I think having them before they even go out to pitch, having the starters before they even go out to pitch, should be checked in the dugout before they even step onto the field. I think if they do that before they even step onto the field, I think that's less of a way for, them to potentially be embarrassed in front of, crowds of like 20 to 30,000 people.
I think from an MLB perspective, and we got 10 minutes left, so I kind of want to, but I think from an MLB perspective, you don't want this out in the open. You would rather not have so much attention drawn to this, because you'd rather it just be, all right, they get checked, like in UFC, just they went before the fight, they get checked, they put the Vaseline on them, whatever. So it's just
Right.
like you don't, that's not something you want to draw attention to. So yeah, I think it's a good idea to just kind of, before the game, check the glove, as the guy's coming up the stairs, umpire goes over, check the glove, check whatever, move on. But I do, we got 9 minutes until first pitch, so we could talk about sticky stuff forever. But that kind of leads us into the pitching matchups for this series. So tonight you're looking at Cody Poteet versus Joe Ross. Tomorrow night, Pablo is back on the hill, and he faces former Cubby John Lester. Saturday, you've got Zach Thompson and Patrick Corbin, who, by the way, I should note that Jordan Holloway was activated off the IL today, and he was assigned to AAA Jacksonville. So that means that the Marlins are going to roll with Poteet and Thompson. They like what they've seen enough, and more than what they saw from Holloway in the starter role, at least. And he did kind of struggle in the starter role down in Jacksonville. But Mattingly kind of talked about how that's more for his development, that they're keeping him in a starter. He gets to throw bullpens, that kind of thing. So go ahead, Nick.
He still needs to, Holloway still needs to work on his control and trying to keep the ball down, because his velocity is electric. The problem is, his control kind of leaves him where, he's walking too many guys, or he's leaving too many things out of the plate where he can get hit. So, and then with Poteet and Thompson, they're pretty much staying competitive and pitching and throwing strikes. And right now, that's what the Marlins need, is guys to basically keep them in the games.
Yep. And they've done a good job with that. I'll say, Thompson has done a really nice job with that, and Poteet pitched pretty well. On Friday night at Wrigley, it looked like it was going to get away from him early when Jock Peterson takes him deep on the second pitch off the IL, but he held it together and did some good work there. And then Sunday is the big one. You get Sandy, Ace versus Ace, Sandy versus Max, and I mean, Sandy, this we talked last time about how Sandy kind of gets amped up for starts, and that kind of contributes to when he kind of has a bad start sometimes. I wouldn't imagine he'd be pretty fired up for this one. It feels like, I don't know if we saw him against like a DeGrom this year or what, but this feels like his first really ace type matchup. And so this is a good chance for him to go out and show what he's got, really. So those are the pitching matchups for this weekend. Which one do you think gives them the best chance to win? Is it tonight because they're facing Ross? Is it Pablo against Lester tomorrow? Kevin, I'll go to you because you love the predictions, and then I guess you can go into your series prediction. Who do you see giving the Marlins the best chance to win this weekend?
Tonight, honestly. Tonight's the best chance. They're facing Joe Ross. Tomorrow's a pretty good chance as well. They face John Lester. Besides that, they face Corbin, a great pitcher. Max Scherzer, one of the top pitchers in the league, even though he has Sandy on the mound. But going to the predictions, I think Marlins split it 2-2. They win tonight and tomorrow, and they lose the next two.
Yeah, Washington has the 12th best staff ERA in baseball this year, so you're looking at a pretty average pitching staff. Isaac, who gives the Marlins the best shot to win this weekend, and how many games do you think they take?
Well, like Kevin said, tonight Joe Ross is definitely the weak link of that rotation. So I think you go tonight, tomorrow are two, hopeful wins. Corbin, he's a great pitcher, but the Marlins, I remember Rojas homered off him last year. Marlins have some decent history against Corbin. And I know I said on the barbecue earlier that it would be a split. I think I'm going to agree with Eli and I think Noah that it's a 3 out of 4 for the Marlins. They have to win 3 out of 4, man. It's getting ridiculous. But yeah, I'll say 3 out of 4.
Well, Corbin's a great pitcher, and he's had a good career, but he's really struggling this year. Actually, he's got a 5.40 ERA.
And that's the game that I'm going to. So, I hope he struggles. So.
And then Joe Ross, 4.54 ERA. They don't get Strasburg. He's struggled as well this year. Lester, 3.96 ERA. So some pretty, handicap, not great ERAs, but 2.19 for Scherzer on Sunday. So, Nick, who gives the Marlins the best chance to win this weekend, and what do you see transpiring?
I will say Joe Ross tonight would be our best overall chance of winning. Tomorrow night against Lester, the Marlins have had a history with struggling against slow-pitching left-handers, i.e. Jamie Muir. So I think that's going to be an L. Patrick Corbin, like you said, has been struggling this season, but all it takes for him to just have one start where he has everything together. So I think that one's kind of a toss-up. I don't. And then on Sunday, I actually think the Marlins actually have a pretty decent record against Max Scherzer. So I feel like we might sneak a win in there, and Sandy will elevate his game, but still stay within himself for us to stay competitive and then eventually win that game on Sunday. So I feel like the series should at least go 2-2, but my real prediction is the 3-1.
Yeah, I don't. It's hard for me to ever predict that a team is going to win 3 or 4, unless it's like a really unbalanced series. And as hot as the Nationals are, like I still think that they're not. I think they're playing a little bit above what they are right now.
Mhm.
They're punching above their weight.
Yeah.
So I think that actually, Lester soft tossing lefty, that whole thing, but he's really struggled, and I think the Marlins. They need an outbreak. I think they break out in one of these games. It's just that's just kind of what they do. I think they'll score like 5 or more in one of these games at least. I'll go with a split just because I think, like I said, it's hard to see either of these teams taking 3 or 4 from one another. But Lopez gives them, they've given Pablo some good run support the last few times out. So I think Pablo gives them a really good chance to win tomorrow night. Any other final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, now the run support that they needed for Pablo is on Pablo, and now they don't have it for Sandy. I just want to mention that. So
I know
it's always a pitcher that just doesn't get the run support. Now it's Sandy.
Well, if Sandy doesn't get run support on Sunday, he might throw a goddamn fit if he pitches really well against Max. So anyway, for Nick, for let's see who was on earlier, for Noah, for Alex, for Isaac, for Kevin, I'm Ethan Medowski, Eli Sussman on the 1s and 2s as well. We will talk to you guys on Monday for the Phillies series. Talk to you guys soon. Go Fish.
Mm-hmm.